You see, something deeply unusual is happening right now, and most people haven't noticed. Those who have awakened, those who have finally seen through the illusion, are quietly disappearing. No drama, no explanations, no grand announcements, just a silent stepping back, a gentle fading into the background, choosing stillness over noise. If you felt this pull, if conversations exhaust you, if social settings feel hollow, if the world's performance suddenly feels unbearable, hear me clearly. This is not isolation. This is not withdrawal. This is spiritual alignment. This is what happens when the soul wakes up. And when I say wake up, I don't mean collecting spiritual quotes or reading feel good ideas about oneness. I mean that moment when the veil lifts and you see life for what it truly is. When you realize most people are not living, they are sleepwalking, acting out roles, reciting lines, moving through routines without ever questioning who gave them the script. And when you were asleep too, this felt normal. You could talk about nothing and feel content. You could chase applause and think it meant purpose. You could live for appearance and call it achievement. But the moment real sight enters your spirit, everything shifts. It's like stepping out of a dark theater into blazing sunlight, and suddenly, the shadows on the screen can no longer fool you. That is what is happening to awakened people right now. They find they can no longer participate in the collective performance. Not because they are better, but because their spirit can no longer tolerate pretending. Society runs on a silent agreement, a pact to act asleep, to pretend titles are identity, to pretend borrowed beliefs are conviction, to pretend business equals purpose, to pretend that striving without soul is success. Everyone must play along for the game to continue. But once someone wakes up, they step out of character. They drop the script. They look life in the eyes. And this makes others deeply uncomfortable. Because when you see clearly, you see beneath the masks. You see fear hiding behind confidence. You see emptiness hiding behind success. You see conflict that is not about truth, but about avoiding truth. When people say they are the problem, the awakened recognize projection. When society shouts in outrage, the awakened hear unresolved pain looking for a target. When the world divides into sides, the awakened see shadows wrestling with shadows. And once you see this, truly see it, you cannot unsee it. You cannot go back to fighting illusions. You cannot return to arguments built on ego and identity. You cannot rejoin a world addicted to blame, noise, and performance. Because to participate again would require you to betray what God has shown you. It would require you to lie to your own spirit. So the awakened do not disappear because they reject people. They withdraw because they refuse to betray truth. They choose silence, not as escape, but as protection of the revelation within them. They choose solitude not from pride, but from obedience. Because once God opens your eyes, you cannot live like you are blind again. And sometimes walking with God means walking away from the world. And when the noise calls you back, remember, it is not loneliness. It is separation. It is sanctification. This is not the world losing you. This is your soul finding itself again. Wisdom for our life will remind you of this truth. When God wakes you up, he also calls you apart. Embrace it. Every interaction begins to demand that they shrink, that they water down who they have become. And eventually the soul says enough. Stop pretending. Stop performing. Stop translating depth into surface language just to feel included. Go where your spirit can breathe again. Understand, this is not avoidance. This is not running from life. This is not retreating because the world is difficult. No, this is revelation. This is recognizing that remaining in unconscious environments slowly suffocates the awakened soul. You cannot grow in darkness forever. At first you survive, but eventually you wither. And the awakened realize something powerful. Being surrounded by sleeping minds is not just uncomfortable, it drains you. You spend energy maintaining awareness while others drain it with distraction, projection, and noise. You hold your ground while confusion spins around you. You stay clear while the world stays clouded. And this invisible work costs far more than anyone knows. So a choice rises. Consciousness over belonging, truth over applause, clarity over acceptance. And that is when the quiet disappearing begins. First, social media loses its pull. You see it as machinery designed to numb minds and mold identity. Every scroll whispers comparison, judgment, illusion. And for an awakened spirit, it feels toxic. So you step back, you delete it, disconnect. Suddenly life returns. Then you drift from familiar circles, not with bitterness, but with truth. Because you can no longer perform social rituals, cannot pretend joy, cannot fake interest in empty conversation. Your real self has surfaced and it refuses to go back underground. Then certain relationships dissolve, not from lack of love, but because they were built on your former self. You are speaking a language they cannot understand. You are living in a world they cannot enter. And finally, the career, the one society told you defined you, but the awakened cannot continue building what no longer aligns with purpose. They cannot trade soul for salary. They cannot show up as a mask. And so they walk away, sometimes gradually, sometimes suddenly, because staying would kill the very awareness God awakened in them. And here is the part the world misunderstands. They think stepping back leads to emptiness, to loneliness, to isolation. But for the awakened, the opposite unfolds. In solitude, loneliness dissolves, because loneliness is not the absence of people, it is the absence of connection. And when you are awake in a room full of sleeping souls, you are already alone. Aloneness, however, is sacred. It is where your spirit breathes. It is where clarity returns. It is where God whispers again. In silence, in stillness, away from noise and identity and performance, you finally meet yourself. Not the self you performed, the self God formed. And that is where true presence begins. I remind you, when God awakens you, He does not separate you to punish you. He separates you to restore you. Not the role you performed, but the living, breathing essence God created you to be. And this is not isolation. This is returning home. In this quiet sanctuary, your thoughts become your own again, free from the noise of opinion. Your emotions settle into truth, no longer shaped by the storms of others. Your desires rise from within instead of being borrowed from the crowd. This is the cocoon season, the sacred hermit phase, and every awakened soul must pass through it. You cannot evolve while clinging to old patterns and familiar circles. A caterpillar cannot become a butterfly while staying attached to the branch it once crawled on. There must be separation, stillness, a sacred withdrawal for true transformation to occur. In this stillness, you are not running, you are integrating. You are purifying years of unconscious living. You are healing the wounds that came from wearing masks. You are strengthening your spirit to stand in truth, even when surrounded by those still asleep. This is harder than pretending, because waking up removes excuses. You cannot blame others. You cannot project your shadows. You cannot hide behind business. You must turn inward and face every layer: fear, pain, pride, doubt, false identity. And no one can do this for you. But here is the gift. Once you do this inner work, once your shadow is faced and your true self emerges, you are no longer shaped by the world. You no longer chase validation or grasp for belonging. You stand rooted in who you are. And from this place, if you return to the world, you come back different, not to blend in, but to serve from a higher clarity. You become a border dweller, living between the awakened realm and the sleeping world, present but not consumed, available but not dependent, engaged but never entangled. You may guide those who are ready. You may speak life, create with purpose, live with purity, and your very existence becomes a quiet invitation to a higher way. But you never again return to playing roles. Once you taste truth, you cannot return to illusion. Once you meet your true self, you cannot put the mask back on. Once your spirit sees, you cannot pretend to be blind. Now some may ask, isn't withdrawing selfish? Shouldn't we stay in the world to help others awaken? And hear this, you cannot give light you have not yet found. You cannot guide others while lost yourself. You cannot heal while bleeding. If you attempt to wake others before you have awakened fully, you only spread confusion. The greatest service you can offer the world is to finish your own becoming, to rise, to integrate, to embody truth, and then be available to those truly ready. Understand, most people do not want awakening. They prefer comfort to truth, performance to transformation, dreams to awareness. And that is their path. Let them walk it. Your calling is not to force awakening. Your calling is to become awake. And transformation is not selfish. It is preparation. Only when you are whole can God use you to lift others. Your assignment is to awaken yourself and then stand available, quietly, humbly, without force or pressure, for those who are finally ready to open their eyes. This is why the awakened seem to disappear. They are retreating to places where they can breathe again, where they can live without hiding, where their spirit does not need to shrink to fit the room. They gather in small circles, quiet spaces, unseen corners. They build pockets of light in a world still dreaming. They form new ways of living that do not demand spiritual compromise. And this is not abandonment. This is responsibility. The world does not need more people reinforcing unconsciousness. It needs living evidence that a different life is possible. It needs those who have done the work. It needs souls who have met themselves and refuse to betray who God revealed them to be. So if you feel the pull to withdraw, if society's noise has become unbearable, if pretending feels impossible, listen to that call. It is your spirit guiding you into sanctuary. It is your soul asking for room to grow wings. Do not fight it. Do not feel shame. Do not force yourself into spaces your spirit has outgrown. Give yourself permission to step back. Give yourself permission to separate. Give yourself permission to disappear for a season, not forever, but long enough for God to finish shaping you. Because when you will return transformed. You will return whole. You will return carrying truth instead of emptiness. Use the solitude wisely. Face what needs healing. Integrate what you once avoided. Strengthen what God awakens within you. Because the world does not need more performers. It needs the genuinely awakened. The spiritually awake withdraw because they must. You cannot nourish your spirit in soil that suffocates it. You cannot walk in truth while standing in environments built on illusion. So, if you are one of them, release the guilt, step back with grace, stand along without fear, trust the process. The caterpillar dissolves before it flies. The seed breaks before it rises. The spirit steps away before it steps into purpose. This is not disappearance. This is preparation. This is not rejection. This is rebirth. You are not leaving the world behind. You are rising ahead of it to make room for what God is growing in you. And one day, when others begin to wake up hungry for truth, searching for direction, needing someone who has walked the path, you will be ready. Your absence is not abandonment, it is obedience. Your silence is not withdrawal, it is formation. Your solitude is not emptiness, it is consecration. You are not vanishing, you are maturing. You are pioneering. You are becoming the answer someone will one day pray for. And that is the most loving thing a soul can do.